What's up, y'all? All right, so today I'm going to talk to y'all about the consumption of substances within the context of spirituality, mysticism, occultism, all of that good stuff, right? Now, all substances are not equal. Obviously, there are things that are better and there are things that are worse, depending on the context and the usage, the reason you're using it, and so on. Everybody knows Aleister Crowley got addicted to a few substances. And I'm not here to tell you that using the substances that he used are spiritual and good and all of that. Now, here's the thing. It all comes down to what are you trying to accomplish? There are substances that are going to benefit you in many ways. There are substances that are going to be a detriment to your entire life. Basic stuff like alcohol is neither here nor there. Alcohol can be used beneficially in multiple ways, simply just to relax, mostly in social situations. If you're the type of person that is using your magic for influence, if you have a sort of situation where there are people around and you're trying to network and you're trying to actually use that influence, being able to engage with a little bit of alcohol can be beneficial, and it ultimately doesn't take anything away from you. There are people that will tell you, oh, these substances are bad and it's not real spirituality and blah blah blah, right? Like you drank a beer, therefore you're not truly spiritual. It's BS. A lot of these yippie type people will go to another country to do ayahuasca and then feel like they got bad vibes because the person doing the ayahuasca ritual also drinks alcohol. And it's like, well, what are you expecting? Do you really think that people that are really in this, that do these ayahuasca and peyote and other type of rituals, aren't going to engage with other type of substances? What makes you think that your idea of which substance is good and which one's bad is valid, right? And I guess I'm doing the same thing because I'm not going to tell you that heroin is beneficial. That's I just don't believe it is. And so yeah, alcohol is perfectly acceptable. Um, Now, using alcohol specifically for esoteric, or I mean for occult reasons, can be beneficial. I've seen people do Palo Mayombe ceremonies where everybody is doing things, and some people, like, the intention is for someone to get mounted, which is when the spirit sort of possesses you and things happen, and it's awesome thing to experience. I haven't experienced it myself, but I've seen other people do it. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes these people drink alcohol, and alcohol can grease the wheels to an extent where you feel a little more open to these types of things. So, drinking a little bit of alcohol, not to the point of complete and total drunkenness, but to like a tipsy area, and then doing some sort of ceremony, ritual, meditation, can prove to have its benefits. Um, but it's not 100%. It's not necessary. If you don't want to do it, don't do it, but understand that this is a possibility. The same goes for marijuana. And one of the most powerful experiences that I've had spiritually was with ketamine. So these are very important things to know, because you don't want to build this wall where you say all substances are evil and bad, but you also don't want to develop an addiction, and use spirituality as a crutch or a excuse for your addiction. The ketamine experience, I've only had it one time, and it was a powerful experience, but I don't feel I need to do it again. Not saying that I would never do it again. I'm just saying it's not something that I feel is necessary for me to do to get to that state that I was in during that moment. I can achieve that through meditation. It's just a little more difficult when you consume the this particular substance. The effect is imminent. It's going to happen. Through meditation, you can meditate for a couple of hours and not experience much. So, you know, take that into account. Now, going over to other areas in substances. Certain substances will ultimately be better for you, not necessarily in a spiritual sense, but it ends up affecting that area of your life. For instance, TRT, using testosterone to maintain very high levels of testosterone, um, preferably within the natural range. But going above the natural range is a possibility, and it doesn't necessarily do anything bad other than potential health risks. Um, but if you're a man, or even if you're a woman, but for a woman, it obviously is going to be an extremely lower dose. But for a man, higher testosterone will help you regulate your emotions. It will keep you a lot more calmer. It's going to have a lot of mental and like psychological effects that ends up being very beneficial for spiritual purposes. Now, something that I find even a little bit more interesting than that are peptides, because there are peptides that can get you to a state where you're very calm, and through meditation and stillness and that calmness coming from that substance, you can achieve altered states of mind that will give you mystical experiences. Now, the substance itself isn't doing it, it's just facilitating a state of mind that makes you more capable of achieving that. For instance, things like Selenk and Cimax, which are and oxytocin. So if you were to consume Selenk, Cimax, and oxytocin, this would be a very powerful um, way to achieve a heightened state of awareness while maintaining extremely calm, and adding on the oxytocin would put you in this state of bonding, this state of love. It's the love chemical, I guess, which would put you in a state of mind where meditating would be a lot easier. So, this is one thing that can be experimented with if you have a way of doing it. These things aren't available everywhere. Certain TRT and HRT clinics do have these available. Sometimes these things are only available in other countries, so you might have a hard time finding this in the U.S. Um, so yeah, so you're gonna have to figure out if you're even allowed to have these substances. But then again, if you've done something like ketamine, but ketamine, there are also situations where this is possible of getting it in the U.S. through some sort of treatment. I've heard of ketamine treatment for depression, so it is possible for you to obtain this in the U.S. legally. So I'm not going to tell you to go against the law. Make sure you understand what you're allowed to have in your region and try to do this on the up and up so that you're getting it from a proper source. The worst thing that could happen is you go through some other channels to get these substances and you get something that's laced with something that will literally kill you. So you got to be very careful. Now, if you're going through proper channels and you're getting it legally, then go for it. Experiment. Um, Something that I would ask you not to try and not to experiment with are things like heroin or prescription pain medications. Not because they won't put you in a dissociative state, because for deep meditations where you're trying to achieve altered states of mind and ego dissolution and pretty much exiting your body, like going into some sort of astral projection type state, or some sort of inward where instead of leaving your body, you go deeper into your um, brain, your mind, or whatever. Like these substances that can cause dissociative or derealization um, are literally the goal. It's literally what you're trying to do, but you need to understand the drawbacks where things like heroin and I forgot the names of the pain medications. I'm trying to think. I know Percocet is one, and but I know there's something even stronger than that, but I forgot the name of it. But the point is, these things are extremely addictive, and you don't want to build a habit out of using these things, especially where these things aren't even available unless you were injured, right? So, yeah, you got to be very careful. I would suggest not experimenting with these drugs because most likely you will become addicted and the benefits do not outweigh the negatives. So, yeah, I think the best way to go for optimization, whether it be for solely physical purposes or if you're including spiritual purposes, I think that peptides might be the best way to go. Or nootropics. Now, we all know cigarettes are bad for you, but nicotine is amazing for the mind. Technically, nicotine is still considered a carcinogenic, but I think the real killer is the actual inhaling of smoke. So if you were to get nicotine as a lozenge, this could put you in a altered state of mind that will be ultimately beneficial for your spiritual practice. So if you're going to consume nicotine, I would suggest some sort of gum or some sort of lozenge, and try to do something small like a 2 milligram lozenge. And if you're ready for a larger dose, a 4 milligram. I wouldn't suggest anything more than 4 milligrams because you will become too lightheaded to concentrate on your meditation or whatever it is you're trying to do. But I do vouch for nicotine when talking about altered state of mind and simply being able to concentrate. Personally, I used to smoke. So when I was quitting, I was prescribed nicotine gum as an aid for um, quitting cigarettes. I didn't need it. I actually quit cigarettes cold turkey, and it was super easy for me for some reason. But they gave me the gum anyway, so I ended up keeping it, and I use it for working out or for meditating. Um, Let me see what else would be a good additive. Natural stuff like certain teas. Uh, Now I know ashwagandha is pretty good for certain things, but it's not going to cause a big difference when talking about meditating. Um, I would I have something, but I forgot the name of it. I think it's L-theanine. It is a substance over the counter. You can get it from Amazon that will cause you to be very calm, which is beneficial in meditative purposes for meditative purposes. Um, there are also other things that cause the same kind of um, uh, sedation, like pearl powder. Pearl powder is also very good, but it's expensive. So, if you can spring for pearl powder, I would recommend using it. Things like GABA is also beneficial. I would not go to stronger things like Xanax or Ativan. Uh, Again, for the same purposes, I ask you not to experiment with pain medications simply because of their addictiveness and potential for overdose. And more importantly, the fact is that if you are able to get your hands on this stuff, uh, this will not be prescribed to you permanently. At some point, they will take it away. And if they take it away when you're already addictive, you will go to the street to get it. And when you go to the street to get these types of medications, it will be mixed with things like heroin and fentanyl and other things. And, if you understand how much Xanax to take for a specific purpose, um, you might be able to take a little bit more. But if it's mixed with something like fentanyl, taking that little bit more will kill you. So you really got to be careful with this stuff. And the best way to prevent um, developing an addiction, to prevent a overdose, the best way to prevent you being significantly damaged is simply by not developing the habit to begin with. Whenever there's something that you're thinking about experimenting with, you have to weigh out all of the negatives. And if you realize that the negatives are pretty serious, the best way to prevent any of that from happening is to just never start. If you don't start, it is super easy to continue not starting. Once you start, it's extremely hard to go back to not doing it. So, preventative care is key. Make sure that you just don't start with these things because it will ultimately screw you up. And the whole point of optimizing for physical benefits and spiritual benefits is to make your life better, not worse. So, obviously becoming a corner crackhead doing the lean and all of that's not I'm gonna err on the side of saying that's not spiritual evolution at it like anymore, right? If you're on the corner, like I'll suck your dick for it, and then, if you're at that point, like, um, you're not evolving spiritually or physically anymore. So let's just not do that. Um, I'm trying to think because there's a lot of substances that are very good for this, but I can't. It's not coming to mind. Um, I think the most powerful substance that can be used responsibly, and it is possible for you to get through legal channels, would be the ketamine. Um, you just have to be careful with all of this stuff because if they stop you from getting it, you don't want to end up going to the street for any of these things, right? Like testosterone, peptides, all of these stuff. You could get this all from a clinic. It will cost you some money, but you can get it and you will be able to continue getting it as long as you pay for it. So this is something that is ultimately beneficial. So I would ask you to do the research on what's going to ultimately affect your psyche in a positive way. I think that testosterone is really good for you. 200 milligrams a week for a man is perfect. You will be at the high ends of natural and you will feel amazing all the time. And for a woman, I would say not going over 10 milligrams per week. So hopefully less than 10 milligrams. More than 10 milligrams a week, your testosterone will probably go above the 80 picograms per deciliter. And if you go significantly higher than 80, you will start seeing some masculinization, so facial hair, your facial structure will start to change, clit enlargement, voice will deepen, and this stuff is not reversible. So if you're a lady and you want to remain a lady, make sure that if you do any type of thing like testosterone, that you take an extremely low dose, like 10 milligrams or less per week. Or even more beneficial for a woman would be taking something like DHEA and pregnenolone. DHEA will convert into testosterone, and some of that testosterone will convert into estrogen, and pregnenolone will convert into the three estrogens that you have naturally. So this will have your body doing the conversion. So it would mimic natural conversion, and your testosterone will rise, your estrogen, all three estrogens will rise, and a few other hormones will rise, but it will not rise to an extreme level. There will still be conversion happening, and ultimately, it will be super good for you when talking about mentally and physically. So yeah, so these are also possibilities. If I was to tell you what I believe the best thing you could do is talk to an HRT clinic. An HRT clinic is hormone replacement, so they're probably going to have other hormones available other than just testosterone. If you're only taking testosterone, then this will possibly be more like a TRT clinic, which is testosterone replacement treatment, which is good, but this means that the only hormone being affected would be the testosterone, which means your other hormones will still be at baseline, and it won't be as good as a full hormone optimization. And ultimately, this would be good physically because increased muscle strength, all of that. But I'm more in this context. I'm talking more for um, uh, uh, mental benefits, because the mental benefits are what's going to ultimately affect your spirituality. If you're able to maintain extremely calm and collected and cool and concentrated, and there's no brain fog, none of this like stuff weighing you down, it's going to put you in a better position to engage with ceremonies, rituals, meditations, and anything that you do to achieve altered states of mind. Now, let me think very quickly. All right, guys. So I remember a few things that I wanted to say. So what I was talking about before, the L-theanine is a good place to start, and you can purchase it fairly cheaply on Amazon, and it's ultimately good for you for this particular within this context, right? So now lemon balm, passion flower, valerian root, and GABA are also actually pretty good for you to create that calmness that allows you to enter these altered state of mind. These are all good and over the counter, nothing illegal, right? So you can all of this stuff is purchasable on Amazon. Now, some other things that you might want to try is kava kava, which is it's sort of like a tea. It's something that you have to prepare. You can look it up on YouTube to see how you prepare it. And this is also purchased on Amazon. It is, I guess, you would say it's a little bit expensive, but whatever. It really comes down to is you create this tea, and it's similar to an alcohol, but you do not get drunk. It's a different type of effect, but ultimately by drinking it, you will enter this euphoric state of mind. And this is traditionally used for ceremonies and rituals. So making this tea during a ceremony and drinking it and entering this calm state, this euphoric state, and then using meditative practices to enter an altered state would be very, very good. It would ultimately be really good to try that. There are some other things like skull caps, blue lotus, and mugwort. But I feel that these are said to work very well, and they do. But it's um, sometimes it's hard to feel the difference. Now, if you want to try these, I would say just try them and experiment with dosaging. So maybe you can make a tea and just make the tea very potent, and it would probably be better. Do a little research before you do that, just to make sure what is the recommended dosage, and then go for like a little bit, like add 50% more of the herb to make it a little stronger, maybe double it, make it even stronger, or maybe let the water boil, like simmer, like condense a little bit, like simmer until it's less liquid, to make the final product thicker and stronger. Um, Experimenting with using multiple of these things at the same time might be a benefit. But whatever I'm mentioning here, you have to do your own research on whether it's good for you. From what I've known, there isn't much to worry about with these herbs and things, right? So yeah. Now, if you're asking me, I would say that kava kava is the best way to go, because it's a very, very noticeable difference. If you drink kava kava, you will notice the difference. And yeah. Now, some other things that are a little bit different, you might want to try is like Mad Honey. So Mad Honey is legal in a lot of places. As of right now, you can order Mad Honey on Amazon, and it is feelable. Like, you will notice when you eat it. Just do some research on dosaging and stuff. For the first time, you should probably only consume half of a teaspoon, or maybe even less than that, just to feel it out to see how you feel. But Mad Honey is very noticeable and could be something you use regularly. And the best part about it is that you can purchase it over the counter, on Amazon, and just experiment with your meditations and see how that feels. Um, Obviously, something similar would be like psilocybin, but um, at least where I'm from, psilocybin is not something you can get legally. So I would suggest not doing that unless you live in a specific area where you can get it prescribed for whatever reason. I know that using it for medicinal purposes has been spoken about, but I don't know exactly where that's permitted. So I would refrain from telling you to do these things, you know, illegally, because I don't want you guys to get in trouble, or to end up in a situation where you're getting it from the street and it ends up having something else in it that hurts you. So, yeah. But so far, Kava Kava is the best option. Probably some things you can do is um, have your Kava Kava and a little bit of like a nicotine lozenge. That would be ultimately good. All right, guys. So that is pretty much everything. I wish I could be a little more informative on this topic, but I'm only telling you guys what I know, and I also have to be careful because I I can't tell you something that I believe when it comes to this particular thing, right? I have to tell you what I'm sure about. Because just because something works a specific way for me doesn't mean it's going to work that way for you. And I can't have whoever sees this going off doing some random stuff and risking getting hurt, right? So, final thoughts. Um, if you have the money for it, let's assume you have the money to do something, to do all of this. I would say talking to a HRT clinic, getting on HRT, perhaps thinking about some peptides, um, and then using it would take about 3 months for this to really take effect, but this is going to improve a lot of mental function, a lot of mood stabilization. It's going to affect your mind a lot. And then when you're actually ready for some ceremonies, some rituals, nicotine and kava kava seem to be the best way to go about it. Another thing, mixing things is probably not a bad idea. So if you wanted to prepare kava kava and prepare it with liquid that's already been turned into a tea that has mugwort, skull caps, what's the other one? Blue lotus. If you want to also take um, valerian root pill. These are all possibilities, and you're gonna have to figure out how to do all of this. Experiment with dosaging and mixtures and so on. But ultimately, what it comes down to, you're trying to achieve. What you're ultimately trying to achieve is a dissociative state intentionally. Um, if you ever find yourself going into dissociative states um, non intentionally, then you should cut back from any experimentation with substances and perhaps see a doctor or a psychologist and try to figure that out because having an ego death experience while you're randomly walking in the street is not good or fun. It's not something you want. So you got to be careful. Make sure that when you enter these altered states of mind, you're doing it intentionally in a safe location. Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much all of that. So hope this stuff is helping you guys, and I hope you're learning something. Yeah. So, all right. Peace.